I'm Mariko Gilman, and I'm the Career Initiative Specialist here at Multnomah University. And we are going to be talking today about stories of resilience, especially as you are navigating an unexpected job and job marketplace. The goals of this session are to really hopefully spark some ideas for how you can use your time at Multnomah to build the skills and the attitudes and the connections you'll need as you enter the workforce, as you look for internships, and as you graduate. We have a wonderful alumni panel with us today who are going to talk about kind of what it looks like in real life to navigate the unexpected in their careers. And hopefully you'll learn a bit about what you can do to develop your career and start thinking about your career now, even while you're in school. So I would love to hand it over to Cynthia again to introduce the panelists, and we can get started.
Great, thanks Mariko. My name is Cynthia Mathai, and I'm the Director of Alumni and Parent Relations. And we have 3 alumni with us, and I'm actually just call out their names and then have them introduce themselves, what year they graduated from Multnomah, what they studied before we get started. So we'll start with you, Alicia.
Hi, I'm Alicia Hovanes. I graduated from Multnomah in 2012. I have a degree in Bible and theology and a minor in Hebrew and some a pastoral leadership concentration.
Thanks, Alicia. Craig?
Hi, I'm Craig Wigginton. I graduated in 2000. I have a Bible and theology degree with a minor in youth ministry.
Excellent. And last but not least, Joe.
Hi, my name is Joe Enlet, and I graduated from the seminary in 2013 with a Master of Divinity.
So we're really excited to get to hear from these alums about their careers, their experiences, some things that they encountered along the way. So we'll just jump right in with this question. How did you get to where you are today? And second part of that question is, what are some considerations that you would recommend as students start thinking about their careers? So whoever wants to jump in first, you could do it as you've introduced yourself if you'd like to answer that question. That'd be great.
I can go ahead and get started. So I was actually recently laid off due to COVID-19 in March, but before that I was doing consulting. I was helping nonprofits, specifically the executive directors and CEOs, be more strategic in their fundraising endeavors. But I have always known since I was in kindergarten that I wanted to be a physician. So I'm still not a doctor, but I've been working at it really hard ever since, including throughout elementary school even. I remember taking some extracurricular activities in elementary school, like writing classes, because it seemed to me that doctors should be good writers, and doing student government in 3rd grade and silly things like that. But it's always been my dream. And then right before I was supposed to move in to my dream college, the only school I applied for, just 2 weeks prior to moving in, the Lord called me to Multnomah. And so I gave up my full ride to pursue my dream and see what the Lord had for me at Multnomah. And I thought that he was asking me to give up my dream. And so I sort of floundered for a bit at Multnomah. I started out as a psych major, and then I did pastoral ministry for a bit and did Hebrew. And it wasn't until my junior year that I realized that I think I misunderstood what the Lord was asking. He was just calling me to do this first. He wasn't asking me to give up my dream, but there were some things that I needed to learn before I was going to try to help heal anybody. And so even though I've been in school since 2008, everything that I learned at Multnomah has helped me along the way. And I think what's helped me the most is learning how to think really well. People at Multnomah, they score higher in their critical thinking analysis. That's something that Dr. Skalberg is so proud of, and he tells us every year that Multnomah students score higher than the national average on this. And I think some of that has to do with having to interpret the Bible. And that is really rigorous work. It's not something that everybody can do. And so since I graduated Multnomah, I have slowly been working towards my prerequisites for medical school, because when I went to Multnomah at the time, there was hardly any science classes. So I have a family, and the Lord also called us to start a family way before I was hoping to. I wanted to not have a family until I was in a residency somewhere, but my senior year of college, the Lord called my husband and I to start a family. And that also made this journey of becoming a doctor take even longer, because that meant that somebody would need to stay home. So my husband decided to stay home. He dropped out of school so that I could finish school, and I did. And because I had the degree, it was statistically more likely that I was going to make more money. So I have been working since my daughter was 6 weeks old up until this COVID, and have been taking classes slowly along the way and just pursuing my dream that I believe is God-given. And it's been an incredible journey. It's been really frustrating too, because I have doctors that are literally my age or younger, and it makes me, if I'm totally honest, makes me a little bit jealous that they are already doing what I want to do. And yet I can't help but think that I'm going to be more empathetic, more wise, more mature, more thoughtful, a better thinker by the time I finally arrive than if I were 22 and getting into med school. So what I want to encourage you guys to do as new students, or just people thinking about what your career is going to look like after Multnomah, really dig in, learn how to think really well. That's what every employer is wanting. That's who gets promoted in different companies, are people that think really well. They're not necessarily always looking for a really niche skill set. It's people that can adapt and learn quickly. People are humble. And if you also develop a soft heart and a listening ear to the Holy Spirit, He's going to take you on an amazing journey. And it's not going to look anything like what you expected, but it's going to be wild and so enriching. So I'm just super grateful for this long, circuitous journey that the Lord's called me to. And I hope that maybe yours is more linear than mine, but if not, it's absolutely worth it.
Thank you so much, Alicia. Craig, would you like to share a bit of your story?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I graduated, I guess I transferred in. So I was a transfer student. I was working on a degree at a university and had the opportunity to transfer in, and was pursuing a relationship. So it was twofold. One, I was interested in somebody, and then I wanted to get a little bit more schooling in youth ministry and Bible and theology, because I thought I wanted to be a youth pastor. That was the career path that I was pursuing. Although it felt like a very weak career path. I was not very career minded. And so it felt like really the most relevant option for me, but I knew there was going to be a lot of discovery along the way. So by the time I graduated, I had realized that I didn't want to pursue youth ministry. And so I had gotten some counsel and discovered that I wanted to pursue a career in counseling. And so we moved out to Colorado to pursue a seminary degree out there. And at that point realized that that was actually not a passion of mine. And so maybe that's just kind of par for the course as to what the next 20 years of my life would look like. But similar to what Alicia had described, just a lot of discovery. So from there, we moved back to Portland, where my wife was from. And then likewise, we also started a family, and I began another career track at that point. And so what I found is within the first few years of graduating, I had been a janitor, I had been a school teacher, I had been an insurance salesman, I had been a manager, I had started 2 of my own businesses, and I had been invited to join a startup also. So who could know what the path was going to look like? Meanwhile, I had tried to start another master's program at Western Seminary, and gotten about halfway through that, and I knew I was going to commit to it until I ran out of time and money, because similar to what Alicia had described, we had also committed to start and raise a family. And once certain things get started, they kind of begin to take on a life of their own. And and begin to box out certain other opportunities. And that just seems to be how God's made the world. And so that career path for me took me all the way until recently. I was part of a successful acquisition and just exited from that acquisition about a year and a half ago. And now I'm doing business coaching. So I work with organizations now, million or multi-million dollar organizations, and coach them through a lot of what I've learned in the last 20 years, which I had absolutely no intent to do when I left Multnomah. And so talk about just a wild ride to see some of the doors that did open up, and really feel like some of the groundwork that was laid at Multnomah has gotten to bear a lot of fruit. Similar, again, I kind of play off what Alicia said. I appreciate what you said about the critical thinking, because that has played a significant part just in what I felt like was an exposure to a lot of strong thinkers at Multnomah, critical thinkers, challenging topics, and the ability to engage in some debate and dialogue, and feel some of that consternation, like, okay, I don't like how that landed, but I don't have a better option yet. And having to work through some of that and go back to the scriptures and reread and say, okay, well, what if it's true? And what does that mean for me? And those are just fantastic skills. So I feel like one of the things, I was actually talking to my daughter, she just graduated, and we were just reflecting on some of the life season that she's in. That's very much where many of you will be who are listening to this, either starting college or transferring in. And I was reflecting that there's one of the things I feel like I've learned is there's a very, very big difference between ideals and experience, your ideals and your experience in life. And if I were to summarize some of what I feel most grateful for, is that the Lord has shown me part of what it looks like to relinquish an ideal and allow your experience to become a new ideal for you. Because life is not always ideal. And especially coming out of college, I had a lot of ideals. And then sure enough, as I'm trying to maintain this ideal, I'm having a different experience. And that creates a kind of wedge where I think I either can kind of turn an eye away from my experience and neglect some of what's really going on and try to maintain an ideal. Or I can say, okay, Lord, but this is my experience. And so how do I receive the fullness of this experience, even though it's not yet what my ideal is or what I'd like it to be? And I feel like that has allowed me to, I think, receive more of who he is for me along my career path, to not be so stubbornly held to an ideal. I'm an idealist. And so I got lots of ideals. I'm a goal setter. I'm an ambitious planner. But again, when the door that's presenting itself doesn't line up with my ideal, I have to ask the question, why is this an open door? And what if this open door is in fact the pathway to what may or may not be my ideal, but it's the open door. And so I just, whether it's business or career advances, or even life experiences, I had Lyme disease for 3 years, which left me almost bedridden for that amount of time. And talk about an ideal that you would never choose. But yet looking back, as I look back on that, I think what a rich experience. The friendships, some of the faith that was developed. So I would encourage you as you get into your college education and begin to ponder, how does this fit with a career that will begin to build as you push through your credits, push through your classes. That I think for me, God's presence has been most precious in those moments and seasons that were not ideal for me. And so learning how to have an ideal, but be very, very perceptive to when the experience that you're actually having could be exactly what he has for you, and richer than the ideal that you thought you were really holding on to. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Craig. I love that both of you so far, Alicia and Craig, have mentioned wild and circuitous in in how you are where you are. So really appreciate that. Joe, do you want to jump in and share?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to thank Alicia and Craig as well, for starting off. And um, I think I can find, many ways that my experience is also kind of similar. Um, Again, my path has also been very non-traditional, unconventional. And if we were talking about a straight line, then my life was like scribbles on a piece of paper. That's how I can describe it, really. Uh, a lot of it has been relationships and also experience that has dictated a lot of where I am today. So I started out undergrad in, on a very small, remote island in Micronesia, a very small Bible college there. Um, it's so remote. There's no cars, no big buildings, no electricity. That's where I started out, and then it was 3 years, and then I had to finish up my degree. I had no idea where I was going then, but I just, kind of had an inkling that I needed to finish up. So I went to Azusa Pacific University in California. I finished up a few credits there, and then I was able to get my degree from my school in Micronesia. After that, by that time I was married and also had a family. Um, we moved to live in Hawaii, but then moved to Portland to attend seminary. I was kind of thinking that maybe, pursuing a seminary degree, that would be my, starting point or launching pad for a world of just ministry in the church. That was kind of where I thought my future would be. So I came to Multnomah, attended seminary, and I will say that I've learned a lot from Multnomah there, but also really benefited from a lot of the relationships that was built there, with faculty, with students, staff. Um, I want to mention most the classes that I really enjoyed mostly were the theology classes. And that might not be true for some people, but I love the idea that there are open-ended questions, that answers are not fully complete, that there's, it's a lifelong journey of discovering and thinking about God, that you never really arrive at, and figure out what God is all about. And I think learning to think critically, but also learning to accept the ambiguity of life, and yet be committed to faith in that, has been something that really has helped me, because after I graduated, we did start a Chuki's church, a church in Vancouver, where I still pastor and teach there. But in terms of a career, I've as Craig mentioned, had a few different jobs, like being a security guard, being a teacher. I sold knives. I made knives in a manufacturing company. So, and then worked for some nonprofits and pursued a passion that I've always had, which was, to seek for bettering the lives of people who don't always have the same privileges and benefits as others. As an immigrant, I had that personal experience of coming and struggling through life. Even getting the Master of Divinity, I had to stop going to school and had to work, had to live in a house with several different families just so we can support each other to be able to get through it. And so that's what I did in addition to doing the church plant. And because of those passions, I volunteered on a lot of boards. Until today, I probably volunteer too much. I sit on a few commissions and boards with the city of Portland and the state of Oregon, also on some nonprofit boards. And I serve as president of one of a national board that organizes for Micronesians. But these experiences led me to my job right now, which is to be the Consul General for Micronesia to the United States. And fortunately, we're based here in Portland, where I've been living. The consulate, the country decided to open the consulate here in Portland, Oregon. So I guess that's another blessing from God, that I didn't have to move away from Portland to accept this job. But in all of this, I realized, relationships have been key. Many of the jobs that I was able to get, and many of the blessings and opportunity were opened up because of, a relationship that I, just happened to be in the right place at the right time. But really with God's providential guidance, we think that things are by chance, but he's behind it all. So all that together, I'm grateful for where I'm at now in this position, and also remembering and having the experience to live out your faith even in the public sector, in the public interest world. And I'm seeing how that also helps us to be creative about how you're engaging with other people through your faith. And Christ teaches us that there's no one size fits all. It could be just drinking water with a lady at a well, or on the side of a mountain, or in a boat. And those are some of the ways that I feel like I'm continuing to practice that faith, and I see a lot of value in the things I learned and experienced through college, through Multnomah graduate school, and then until now. I still rely on him, on our Lord for everything. Whether it be me talking about, national security in the Pacific region, talking to people who make decisions, and very high level political situations. But I still see a lot of the bearing of my thinking and my development as a person through all these experiences. So it's not been a linear path. It's been scribbles on a paper. That's how I describe my life. But through that chaotic, scribbles, God is the providential creator and guider, and he's always in the background making sense of all the scribbles to make a beautiful portrait of life. So that's all I can add right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I love that image of God being an artist with our lives, and making the scribbles and the unexpected turns really paint a picture of what God is doing in our lives. And I think for a lot of us in college, we're at the beginning of a journey, it feels like, and we don't know where the scribbles and where the turns are going to be. So I'm wondering if each of you could talk to students about how they can maximize their time while they're in school to prepare for the unexpected, for some adversity. Each of you, I think a theme in all of your stories has been unexpected events like illness or family, careers that you weren't expecting to have, kind of detours, and all of that challenging some of the ideas that you had about what you would be doing or how it would happen. So I'm wondering what advice you'd give to students who are starting school or about to graduate as they kind of face a lot of these uncertainties. And feel free to just unmute as ideas occur. Yeah, thanks, Alicia.
I have a few suggestions. I also used to work at Multnomah as the director of that's you, Alumni Relations, of Advancement Operations. And so I've had the awesome opportunity to supervise student employees. And that is a really fantastic way to help launch your career. And so I would encourage students to think about what they're good at, even if you don't necessarily know what you're going to do. What are you good at, or what seems interesting to you? Or who are some people around campus that you look up to and respect or would like to learn more for, and see if there's a job there for you. And if not, talk to the person anyway and see if you can create something or even volunteer your time. I think that's a really great option. I would also encourage people to get involved as an RA or in student government to learn more leadership skills, problem solving, especially interpersonal problem solving, and help boost your emotional intelligence. That's something else employers are really looking for, emotionally intelligent people, problem solvers. And I would also encourage people to take extra English classes with Dr. Shack and Dr. Pothen, because even if you have no interest in being an English major, and I wasn't, I learned so much from those two human beings. And you're going to learn way more about your faith in with those two professors than you ever thought possible from English classes.
I'll jump in here. I think for me, a theme in all my educational life has been kind of something that can be summarized in a question that, you know, a professor who visited Multnomah actually coined this question. He said, "Since when do we divorce the right answer from an honest answer?" And I think he's speaking to education. The very essence of education is often, you know, we study as students to get the right answer, but is it the honest answer? And I'd like to encourage that students not be afraid, to think and question. And if I could redo my, you know, educational undergrad and seminary again, I would probably read more books that are not necessarily things you agree with, but really be willing to challenge your own thinking and question everything. I think that the beauty of our faith should not be in the fact that we defend what we should believe, but in the fact that we are able to ask the critical questions about our own beliefs and allow God to work through that as well. And so I think, you know, expanding kind of your view and being willing to challenge that and read broader outside of just reading the kind of, you know, what you're assigned in terms of your textbooks. I know that's going to be a challenge to keep up with that, but really it keeps us honest. And at the end of the day, education is much more than a degree. It's more about your integrity and developing that and knowing what you believe. And so that's what I would encourage, you know, students coming in, is to know that it's okay when you come up and have a question that keeps you up at night and that you you can't really put your finger on. But that's really part of growing, and you would really maximize your time in the learning environment if you allow yourself to also be challenged in your thinking and your beliefs, as long as you know, you can have people who are willing to talk to you. And I know that, you know, from my experience, there are people who are willing to sit down with you and talk, and you just gotta muster up the courage to come up and be vulnerable as well and say, hey, I'm really dealing with this issue here, and how can I make sense of this? And through talking through it, you can really develop as a person. and also in your education. So I would say be willing to be challenged and be honest, honest to yourself.
I love that, Joe. One of the things I took away from Ray Lubeck that still carries with me 2 decades later is there's 3 types of books: books you like, books you don't like, and good books. And the good books are the ones that often leave you with more questions than answers, and they're almost always something you're willing to read a second time later on. So yeah, definitely I love that. I just was having a conversation with my son. This is what comes to mind. He's doing some landscaping work, and it's hard work. And with moving rock, he's moving dirt. It's good work, but he's just starting to process, this is a lot of work. So I'm not quite sure how much longer I want to be doing this. And it opened up just a beautiful conversation I think would be pertinent to share here, because I think similar to what Joe was describing, the education is much broader than a single class. Work is also much broader than a single job. And so your ability to learn early on and just really settle into the process of learning, settle into the process of becoming the kind of person that adds value in a given environment is, I think, will determine some of the doors that will open for you, some of the experiences that you'll have and be privy to. So I was challenging my son. I said, I don't know when the best time to move from this job to something else is. It's always a mystery. So be prayerful about it. Keep your eyes and ears open, and be looking if there's something that feels like it has maybe more resonance with what you'd like to be doing. But I said, whatever you do, and whenever that decision point comes, make sure you walk away with 2 things from whatever you're doing currently. One is tangible skill. And that requires some reflection, because you really need to know, what am I learning through this? Because if you don't have that when you leave, then that whole experience can be a wash. If you don't know what skills I've developed, and really it comes down to who have I become through this experience, because the skills that you bring are really tied to the character that you developed. So make sure you walk away with a tangible skill was one, and spend the necessary reflection to know what I'm learning, what you're learning. And the second, I said, make sure you walk away with a recommendation that in the course of your relationships, that you honor those to such a degree that they would be happy to refer you on to your next opportunity. I said, if you can walk away with those 2 things, I'm telling you, almost every other door will open. And so I feel like that it would be pertinent here, whether it's the class that you're in. So know what you're learning in a given class, whether it's extracurricular, know why you're investing the time. Why would that be worth it when you're finished? What have you learned from that? Who have you become through that investment of time and relationship? And then be honoring, seeking out the relationships, or at least very aware of the relationships that you have, especially in a work environment, and honor those to the degree that they would be happy to refer you on to your next opportunity, and be willing to ask for it. Say, hey, I think this is going to be a time for me to wind down this opportunity, that I think I'm going to pursue a better fit in something else. Would you be willing to refer me on to my next opportunity? Have that conversation early, so that those relationships don't get stale or cold when that next opportunity comes.
Can I just piggyback off of a couple of things real quick I just love what both of you said, Joe and Craig. First, Joe, I was thinking about reading things that you don't necessarily agree with or that challenge your opinion. I was talking with somebody, I think just yesterday, about how for a lot of people right now, with how shaky things feel in the world, people are having crises of faith and existential crises. And I think that if you can use this time at Multnomah to really dig in and explore different viewpoints, you're going to mitigate a lot of future anguish, because your foundation won't be shaky. If you can really press in and make sure that your foundation is strong while you're at Multnomah in particular, and you have just a wealth of knowledge in the professors and relationships around you, that's going to set you up far ahead of so many other people who for people that lack the opportunity day in and day out to be investigating into their faith more. So I thought that was really good advice. And Craig, I was thinking about my grandparents when I told them that I was going to go to Multnomah, and they knew that I'd been pursuing medicine my whole life and still wanted to, but it seemed like such a detour that I was going there. They have been educators their entire careers, and they told me something that I will never forget. They said, Alicia, there's no such thing as a wasted education. And that is absolutely true. And that's true of your work experience too, if you're present and you show up. And so I love that, that advice that you gave. If you are showing up with integrity and keeping your eyes open, your spirit open for what the Lord is doing, there's no such thing as a wasted time or wasted education.
Thank you, Alicia. And thank you, all of you, for that advice and just sharing your stories so openly. There was a lot in there, and I hope all of you listening and watching are taking notes. There was some really practical suggestions, just not even about how to start things, but also Craig talked about how to end well and how to keep those relationships even when you're leaving things. And Joe talked a lot about who you are as a person and how that matters sometimes even more than what you're doing, that the being and your faith and the things you're rooted in really will influence your path almost more than what you are actually doing in some cases. And then Alicia, thank you for bringing us back to the value of trying new things, getting involved. No education is a bad education. We're always learning, we're always growing, and that even jobs and work experience and internships and things that are not what you're meant to be doing forever, those are all good experiences that you can learn from. And I think each of you listed like multiple jobs that you tried and did for a little while. And Joe is making knives at one point, and now he's a consul general for his country. These are all normal, that it's normal to try things, for things to not work out, and for that to be a really good learning opportunity to be discerning about what's next and where God is taking you. So I want to just thank all of you for the time you've spent sharing your stories. I also just want to let students know that you can contact me at any time at the Career Center. You can email careerservices@multnomah.edu. You can contact the alumni office at alumni@multnomah.edu. We are here to help you through these things, to provide you with resources, and to just talk through what you're grappling with around your journey in your career. So please do reach out and talk to us. And thank you again to our panelists and Cynthia for hosting. Everyone, have a wonderful day.